Hi, my name is Felix. 2 years ago, I started running. That was after an unexpected collapsed lung in my early 30s. Before that, I've never been a runner, and I never wanted to be one. If you're thinking about how to start running in your 30s, I think I know what's exactly stopping you. It's not that you don't understand the benefits. It's not even that you think you're too old. I think what's stopping you is the first 6 months of building that running habit. Because you know they're going to be hard. You know your body is going to complain. And here's the thing nobody tells you. You're absolutely right. The first 6 months are hard. But they're not hard in the way you think. And they're way more fun you're missing out in the first 6 months that no one in this universe is going to tell you. And I'm going to reveal them in this video. If you're someone in your early 30s, you've never been a runner, you don't come from an athletic background, and you're hesitating because you know the beginning of building a running habit is going to suck, this video is for you. Look, I really don't see myself as a coach. I just want to speak with somebody who was like me a couple years ago, who also thought I'm not someone who would ever build a running habit. And to be clear, what I want to do here is not to convince you the first 6 months is gonna be easy. They're not. What I want to do here is to show you what actually happening during those months, the changes that happen underneath the struggle, and why the first 6 months might be the most important part of the entire journey. But before we talked about the first 6 months, we need to talk about what you're carrying into them. For most of my life, I carried a label, weak cardio. Maybe nobody says those exact words, but that's how exactly I interpreted it. I had lung issues growing up, and I collapsed my lung in my early 30s. And over time, I started building my life around that label. I avoided certain sports, I avoided certain challenges, I avoided finding out what my body was actually capable of. And here's the thing, the label wasn't stopping me, I was. Because every time an opportunity appeared, I filtered through the identity that I had. I'm an Asian, so ice hockey isn't for people like me. I had weak cardio, so long distance running isn't for people like me. And marathons are definitely not for people like me. So I never found out whether that's true or not. And this is where most beginner runners in their 30s get stuck before they even start. Not at the physical barrier that they have, but it's who they think they are barrier. It is a story that you've been telling yourself about what your body can actually do. And let me be very realistic about what the first 6 months of running will look like. Because I think there's not enough people talk about the struggle, the nasty parts. Your body will revolt, your lungs will burn. You will run for 45 seconds and wonder if you make a terrible mistakes to start the run. This is what I call the fun gap. It is the period between when you start running and running actually start to feel good. And for beginner runners in their 30s or older, that gap is wider than people think. When you're at your 22, your body will adapt really fast, but when you're 35, it takes longer. Your recovery will be slower, and your cardiovascular system does not snap back the way it used to. You also have to reverse that weak label, right? You've been wearing for so many more years than ones who are younger than you. Your identity will remind you that you're too old for this. But that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's just the reality. And I'm not going to lie to you about that. But here's what I also need to tell you, because this is what nobody on the internet says it out loud. Even in the middle of the struggle, you'll see something start to change. If you run in the morning, you'll start noticing something. You're outside before the day begins, before the noise, before anyone needs anything from you. You see the sky change color. You notice the way the light hits the trees. You're watching the world wake up, and you're being part of it. This beautiful, quiet side of the world you'll never get to see because you choose to run. Imagine during a regular work days, before you even start your day, before you've done anything else, you've just already done something you're really proud of yourself. What kind of level of productivity will you be operating in with that day? What level of confidence will you be starting your day with? Especially when the rest of the day might be stressful, especially when you might not get another win that day. you already got one at 6:30 in the morning, before the world asks anything of you. And if you run at night, it works magic just as real. Imagine spending the entire day giving your energy to work, to obligation, to other people. And instead of collapsing into your couch while you're drained, now at the end of it, you get to do something that's yours. You're choosing to end your day with something you decided to do. Something that says, I still have energy for myself, not my client or my boss. And I can tell you with 100% confidence, a healthy running habit would change how you feel about your day. It would change how you feel about your job and everything that's draining you. And then there is another thing that's huge to me, the sleeping quality. In the first few weeks, I started picking up running as a habit. My sleep changed. And I'm not talking about I felt a little more rested. I'm talking about measurable, trackable changes. My resting heart rate dropped. My sleep tracker showed deeper sleep cycles. And most crazy thing is, I've started dreaming again. Like I hadn't dreamed consistently in years, and all of a sudden I was. Because my body was actually recovering at night instead of just shutting down. And this happened fast. Just within the first month, I started picking up running. And here's what I want you to notice about all of this. None of these changes are about running performance. They're not things people online talks about running. I've yet to talk about pace, distance, marathon. These things about how you feel before and after the run, how you start your day, how you end your day, and how you sleep. And these early wins you get, they're what makes you want to keep going. Because yeah, your legs are going to sore. You're still slow, and some runs will still feel terrible. But you are also sleeping better than you have in years. You're also proud of yourself before breakfast. You're ending your day on your own terms. And that, not willpower, is what carried you through the first 6 months. There's something else I learned before running that also became a reason why I was able to build a running habit without complaining about the nastiness, the boredom of it. In my mid to late 20s, I decided to pick up ice hockey. I didn't grow up playing hockey. I didn't grow up in a hockey culture. Not many people in my demographic, someone who looked like me and at my age, was out there learning to play ice hockey and learn how to skate from scratch. And when I told people that I'm going to do that, I got a lot of looks. Because I was going against the norm, against the label, against the stereotype, what someone like me was supposed to do. But here's what made it possible. It became a big enough reason. I wanted to know what it felt like to be on the ice. I wanted that experience badly enough that I was willing to be the worst player out there, willing to be awkward, willing to be judged by others. I slowly become the only Asian, the only people who look like me in my team. And that's the thing about label. When you tear one down, especially one that says people like you don't do this, you have to work harder than everyone else. I have to practice more. I have to prove myself more to be accepted by others. But that's also where the pride comes from. Because when you finally get enough to hold your own, you know you earn it differently than the people who started at age 6. That new identity is so much stronger. And the cost of not doing it, the cost of letting that old label win, that's a regret I would have carried on my deathbed. This is what I think most people miss when they try to build a running habit in their 30s. They don't have a big enough reason. Getting in shape is not a big enough reason. It would be nice to be healthier is not a big enough reason. Those reasons will not hold when you're tired, sore, and it's raining outside. You need something that matters more than discomfort. Something you want badly enough that being bad at it is still better than not doing it. For me, with running, it was the label. Weak lungs, too old, not built for this. Instead of allowing those labels to define me, I want to prove myself that that label wasn't the whole story. That was my big enough reason. So before you ask, how do I start running? I want you to ask yourself, what's my big enough reason? Because that's what gets you through the first 6 months. And this leads to something that changed how I think about recovery. In your 20s, you can operate on 4 hours of sleep, eat garbage, skip recovery, and still function. In your 30s, 40s, or older, a running habit demands you to take care of the rest of your life. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, recovery days, stretching, all these things are not optional. They're essentials that make running possible. And they can sound very intimidating and requires a whole lot of discipline. That's another reason you need to have a big enough reason for the pain to stop being the loudest voice in the room. When you're running just to get in shape, every ache feels like a warning. Every sore morning that you wake up with feels like a reason to stop. The pain becomes the main character. But when you are running to tear down a label, when you're building a new identity, when you're proving something to yourself that you've been carrying for years, although the pain doesn't disappear, it stops being the point. It becomes part of the process. It becomes the evidence that you're doing the work. Not a signal to stop, but rather a signal that you're moving towards something. Pain becomes progress towards a bigger goal, and that shift changes everything. Now let me be clear about something that you have to pay attention to. If you're using pain as the reason to keep going, if "I'm suffering so this must be working" becomes your motivation, they are the wrong motivation. The combination of running and recovery is what makes healthy habit possible. A good running habit should fit your life, not to force your life to fit the habit. And this is the biggest shift from my first 6 months. I'm no longer chasing how much training I can survive, I'm chasing how well I can recover. Because when recovery is right, the run becomes about progress and not survival. When people consider beginning a running habit, they usually ask, what will this habit cost me? How much time? How much effort? How early do I need to wake up? Will my knees hurt? Will I get injured? But I wish someone told me to ask a different question. What will it cost me if I never start now? What will my life without this habit look like 3, 5, 10 years from now? And I understand it's genuinely hard to imagine the answer to that question, but if you've never built a habit like this, if you've never walked through that doorway, how would you know what's on the other side? You can't see what's the habit unlock until the habit unlocks it. So let me show you what I would have missed. If I never start running, I wouldn't just miss marathons. I wouldn't have met the people I've met, the friendships that came through running, through races, through training groups, through this community. I would certainly not have this channel. I wouldn't be having these conversations with you. I wouldn't be reading your comments realizing, okay, it's not just me. Running gave me a big passion, a central thing in my life that is my career and my family. And that changed everything for me. Because when you have something you're genuinely excited about, something that's yours, the rest of your life gets clearer. You started to notice which part of your life are draining you, which relationships aren't serving you, which jobs, which pattern, which old identities you've been holding on to that don't fit anymore. Running didn't just change my body, it changed what I'm willing to tolerate in life. And none of that was visible when I started. All I saw back was a pair of running shoes. This is why I built this channel. I want to show you what you can't see from where you are standing right now. To show you what's possible, not as a theory, but as something real and visual right in front of you. And I also built this channel because when I started running, I didn't have people around me who understand what I was going through. I didn't have someone saying, hey, the first 6 months are supposed to feel like this. I didn't have someone normalizing that struggle. So on this channel, you'll find videos on how to build the habit, how to stay consistent, how to start when you've never been an athlete, and how to keep going when you want to quit. If you go to the playlist I built in this channel, you'll find resources on everything from the first run to the first race I started. Because I want you to feel supported. I want you to feel safe here. There's no judgment here whatsoever. Because I was the one being judged before. And if you're someone who wants running to fit into your life, drop a comment and let me know. At this point, I really care less about your background, but I want to know more what really hits you, what made you consider picking up a running habit. Because you don't have to do them alone. And I'm here to support and show you if I can do it, you can do it too. A healthy running habit was never really about running. Just like learning a language isn't really about vocabulary. Just like learning to cook isn't really about recipes. The habit itself is just a doorway. The real question should be, what possibilities become available once you walk through it? For me, running gave me evidence. Evidence that my body wasn't as fragile as I thought. Evidence that my old story wasn't completely true. And once I had that evidence, everything changed. Because challenging an old identity changes what becomes possible. One of the biggest mistakes people can make in their 30s and 40s is waiting until they desperately need a habit. Waiting until health becomes an emergency. Waiting until energy disappears. Waiting until the doctor tells them something has to change. But habits don't grow well under panic. They grow through curiosity. And by the time you desperately need running, the habit becomes much harder to build. Not impossible, just harder. So maybe the best time to start isn't when everything falls apart for you. It's when you're curious enough to explore what might happen. When you have a big enough reason, and when you are willing to be bad at something new. So if you're thinking about how to start running in your 30s, here's what I want you to take from this. The first 6 months of building a running habit will be hard, but in those 6 months, you notice the mornings differently. Watching the skies change before the world asks anything of you. You'll end your days on your own terms, not mentally drained, but choosing something that's yours. You will sleep deeper than you have in years, and you will dream again. You collect evidence that your body can do more than you thought. And if you have big enough reason, the pain you go through will stop being the point. So stop asking yourself, am I too old to start running? Start asking, what label am I trying to rewrite? Maybe it is, I'm not athletic. Maybe I'm too old. I'm not disciplined. I'm always tired. Whatever it is, that's the thing worth paying attention to. Because the habit isn't really the goal. The habit is the tool to kill the identity you've been holding for years. My weak cardio label gave me a very specific life. Running challenged that label. And because of that, I got people, places, passion, and clarity that I couldn't see from the starting line. So here's what I want to know from you. What is the label you've been carrying? The one that made you think running wasn't for you? And what's your big enough reason? Drop both in the comments. I really want to read them. Because I had my label for years, and the hardest part wasn't starting running. It was to admit that you have that label and declaring that you're going to rip it apart. My name is Felix, just figuring things out one run at a time. I'll see you on the next one.